गाइस, कैसे हैं आप लोग। आज फिर से स्टार्ट कर रहे हैं आप लोग अपनी नई सीरीज़ का नाम है नदीम असलम की जनरल एंथ्रोपोलॉजी। We'll complete this series very soon, and we very sure that you will get value every video and next every one after one day. That every next second day you will get my every video, so that you can easily complete a chapter by only seeing this video. I will just only read by word, so that you can just make your earplugs in your ear and just simply read a chapter completely. That even also you can revise it very well with that speed. And if you want to change your speed, you can change. Or if you think that I'm very fast, then you can make it slow. So let's start out. As you can see, the first chapter is meaning and scope of anthropology and its main branches, and it is the first topic of our syllabus of exceptional anthropology. So there are five topics we will cover in this chapter. So first is physical anthropology, social cultural anthropology, archaeological anthropology, and linguistic anthropology, applied anthropology. We will not complete full, at least we will just understand these five concepts nicely. We will get familiar with this concept. Okay, so let's start with our next first section, origin meaning. Now this is the first. The meaning and scope of anthropology and its main branches. The word anthropology is derived from the Greek word anthropos, man, and logos, science. There's a very obvious common sense and popular definition of anthropology. It is a science of man and his works. The manifold activities of the anthropologists have been engaged into earlier clearly suggest that they have taken that the anthropology is the most comprehensive of the sciences dealing with the man and his works. It cuts across the barriers of time and space. Ideally speaking, a student of anthropology is as much as interested in prehistoric societies and cultures as he is in contemporary ones. So he must be equally fascinated with the people and cultures of remote and distant areas as he was in those of his backyard. Subject matter of anthropology is vast. It includes everything that has to do with human beings, past, present, and far and near. Many of the sciences and disciplines. So first one is we study one or the more study one or the more other aspect or the most wonderful creature that man is. While anatomists and physiologists study humans as biological organisms, and social sciences like economics, sociology, history, and other various aspects of human society and culture, anthropologists are interested in all of these things. So, the anthropology may be described as a science of man in totality. Obviously, it is not possible for a single anthropologist to study and investigate the personally in everything that has to do with man. So that's why anthropology has been divided into various branches and subfields, and individual anthropologists specialize in one or more of these. So at present, the following major branches of disciplines are: the first one is physical anthropology or biological anthropology, second one is social cultural anthropology, third one is archaeological anthropology, and fourth one is linguistic anthropology or language based anthropology. But before we move to discuss the meaning and scope of these more major branches, let us move some idea about the origin and development of anthropology in the global context. Although studies of anthropological nature and interest have been carried out of last 200 years or so, it's the only during the last 100 years that anthropology has been recognized as a separate discipline. He was the first academic position in the anthropology was held by the Edward Tyler at Oxford in 1884. He was one of the pioneering anthropologists and author of the first exhaustive study of human society and culture. Almost immediately after its, Franz Boas became the first professor of anthropology in the United States at Clark University. Then after that, Clark University in Massachusetts. The first course in general anthropology was offered in 1885 at the University of Vermont. One of the main reasons for its slow growth of anthropology was the lack of vision or the part of the Europeans to recognize the similarities and homogeneity in physical and cultural aspects with the non-whites, non-Europeans. All the remotely located societies not sharing the fundamental cultural values of the European whites hardly deserved has been regarded as humans. When human diversity was accepted as natural, it opened the doors for the formal studies. Credit goes to European explorers, adventurers, travelers, missionaries, and a host of the other people for providing rudimentary and basic information about so-called exotic and strange people inhabiting the remotest of areas. It is interesting to know that the earliest anthropologists like Tyler, Morgan, Spencer, Bose, etc. were by and large Armkai anthropologists who were basing their conclusions on the secondary data and but secondary sources. So they were theorizing on the accounts provided by the others. The Jesup North Pacific expedition led by the Franz Boas in 1897 and the Cambridge expedition to the Torres Straits is in 1898 to 1999 comprising Haddon anthropological fieldwork. So Malinowski, the great British social anthropologist of Polish origin, transformed by the fieldwork in the anthropology and raised it as a status to the of art and craft. So from the first quarter of the present century, anthropologists could never be the same again till almost the first quarter of the 20th century, the common man and even the intellectual class considered the contemporary anthropologists as eccentrics. This was primarily due to the anthropologists interested in bizarre, in inconsequential things. In a highly interesting and absorbing description, Gopal Sharma in 1983 says that so-called liabilities, namely the study of oddments, the so-called eccentricity of the pioneering anthropologists, and romanticism, which led most of them to take interest in distant places and exotic people, have proved to be the most advantageous to anthropology. The 19th century anthropologists studied the oddities out of pure interest in them, and not to perform the world or to earn of relative objectivity, have become the distinctive attributes of anthropology. Although it is true that anthropology began with the study of life and customs of primitive people, it diversified and included such branches as physical anthropology, prehistory, linguistic, and a vast number of sub-branches and the fields of specialization. During the first quarter of 20th century, when anthropology started blossoming into a full-fledged academic discipline, scholars from the natural sciences background were attracted into the sport. Haydn was a marine zoologist. Rivers was a physiologist. Seligman a pathologist. Eliot Smith, an anatomist. Malinowski, a physicist, and back home in India, N.K. Bose, are physicist and geographer. These men had been taught that in sciences one tests hypotheses by one's own observations. One does not rely on laymen to do it for one. They brought with them and the scientific temper and the objectivity that during later stages that helped the anthropology to become a mature discipline. Now let us pick up the thread where we left it. After making a journey spread over about 3 decades, that is from the last decade of 19th century to the third decade of present century, when it had been recognized as a mature and independent academic discipline, anthropology was divided into largely 4 major branches. Following the summarized description of these major branches, that will give you an idea about the richness, expanse, and canvas of anthropology. Physical anthropology. Now, man is first of all biological organism, and only secondarily as a social animal. The study of nature of human organism through physical anthropology is therefore basic to understand the nature of man. In the 19th century, physical anthropology was mostly concerned with the concept of race. It was more pronounced in the United States, where scientific investigation of racial differences became a major concern as a byproduct of civil war. Otherwise, the most obvious concern of physical anthropology right from the beginning has been human evolution. So through the study of fossils and observations of living primates, and the physical anthropologist tries to trace the ancestry of human species in order to understand how, when, and why, where we first came the kind of animal we are today. Another major concern of physical anthropology is the study of human variations. Despite the fact that we belong to the same species, Homo sapiens, and look like in many obvious physical traits, so we differ from each other in very obvious and not too obvious ways. More academically speaking, the subject matter of physical anthropology fall into 2 main fields: the study of man as a product of evolution process, and the study and analysis of human populations. The methods employed in these 2 fields may be different. The results are closely related, and information thus gained supplement each other. Now, man's interaction with his environment is another major concern in physical anthropology. Man's interaction with his environment is another major concern in physical anthropology. The ways in which man interacts with the environment have their bearing upon his biological nature. So through such researches, we may further add to our knowledge of the conditions responsible in the diversity in human forms. With the passage of time, physical anthropology has made rapid strides. It has diversified drastically. It has moved to more specialized and problem-oriented areas. With the knowledge of genetics of blood groups, genetical studies of various populations with the focus on blood groups received the tremendous impetus. Disease in the relation to morphological traits, hair histology, human adaptability, and immunization, and are no more alien to physical anthropology. Demographic studies throwing light on the preferential mating patterns, marriage distances, inbreeding, and outbreeding are now important fields of study right now. So with the expanding canvas, it has transformed itself into biological anthropology, and a new physical anthropology has emerged. The description shall not be complete without having some idea of distinctiveness of physical biological anthropology. Many aspects of human biology are studied by scholars into other related fields. What distinguishes the physical biological anthropologist from other medical scientists, zoologists, etc., in his concern with human variations and adaptation with reference to culture. In other words, relationship between culture and human biology. That is cultural social biology, anthropology. Social culture anthropology. The second major branch of anthropology is social culture anthropology. Of these two terms, social anthropology is popular by in Great Britain and other countries influenced by the academic tradition and a sequence of colonial rule. So hence, the Commonwealth countries, France, Netherlands, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, use of term anthropology extensively. So, on the other hand, the term cultural anthropology is in vogue in the United States of America, in USA, and other countries having intimate academic interaction with American universities and American anthropologists. Till some time back, you can say, till some time back, the term the social anthropology has been in the vogue of India, despite the fact that there was a no doubt we do not have the same narrow scope and the thematic canvas as it has had in Great Britain. So in the United States of America, most of the anthropologists have been subscribing to the view that in the view of expense and scope, social anthropology at the most may be considered to a sub-specialty or sub-branch of cultural anthropology. Since anthropology in India evolved under the shadow of British colonialism, it adopted the term social anthropology. But for the last 4 or 5 decades precisely, you can say that speaking since early 50s, interaction between the Indian and American anthropologists increased substantially, with American anthropologists doing research on Indian society and our students of anthropology studying in America in university. The complexion of anthropology in India also changed appreciably. We started deviating from British traditions, especially in the sense that the academic canvas was greatly enlarged. Themes multiplied in scope, widened by the including such areas as art, mythology, folklore, etc. So, but still, as Gopal Saran 1983 rightly points out, that it is neither feasible nor desirable to make a very sharp distinction between the social anthropology and cultural anthropology. Hence, it will be better to use the term social cultural anthropology. Now, cultural anthropology studies the human behavior, obviously, so that is learned rather than genetically transmitted. It incorporates all aspects of culture. Social anthropology concentrates on social relations, and such as family and kinship, political organization, law, and economic activities. And you can say that these are the ingredients of social culture structure. For the social anthropology is largely synchronic in approach, denoting the study of societies and cultures at a given point of time. So while cultural anthropology, you can say culture encompasses the diachronic approach, which is denoting the study of societies and culture through time. So that's why archaeology has always been a part of cultural anthropology, and precisely speaking, social anthropology is non-historically, while cultural anthropology is historical. So that's the difference. With the difference, you can say social anthropology is non-historical because that's come by in future as well as changes, and cultural anthropology it's come from historical. It is as your father, your ancestors do the activity in the same way you will do in the today's life. So till about the first quarter of 20th century, the term social cultural anthropology was not popular. So rather it was ethnology, as Kroeber points out that ethnology is the science of people, their cultures, and their life histories as groups. It seeks interrelationships between the people and their environment. So between human beings as organisms and their cultures, between different cultures and between differing aspects of cultures. More precisely speaking, ethnology is the comparative study of cultures and the investigation of theoretical problems using information about different groups. Ethnologists also study the dynamics of culture, that is how various cultures develop and change. So thus the aim of the ethnologist is largely the same as that of the archaeologist. They use data collected first hand by the field culture, and it is not a comparative study. When an ethnologist, social cultural anthropologist concentrates only on group society culture, does not take into account other groups cultures instead of the same larger reason. He is doing ethnography, and hence the detailed study of any particular tribe or community is the work of ethnography. And to explain it further, an ethnological study is based on 2 or more ethnographies. The latter provide the raw material for the former, and the cultural anthropology in case of India, social cultural anthropology covers both these areas. And archaeological anthropology, if we talk about archaeological anthropology, it is that because it is the branch of the anthropology which is concerned with the study of material objects, that means as describing and explaining human behavior. Largely speaking, it has focused on men's past because things rather than ideas are often all that survive of the past. Etymologically speaking, the term archaeology means the study of antiquities and of the past. Anthropology, cutting across the barriers of the time and space, naturally takes interest in man's past, especially prehistoric past, because historians are competent only to take care of the written records. Thus, archaeologists may be seen serving as the historians among anthropologists involved in the cultural reconstruction of man's past. Till some time back, the term prehistory or prehistoric archaeology has been popular. Unlike a social culture anthropologist, an archaeological anthropologist cannot observe human behavior and culture directly, but reconstructs them from material remains. Now, pottery, tools, cave rock paintings, ruins of shelter, ornaments, and so many other materials remain that survive the wear, the tear of the climatic factors. Now, to recreate man's past without any written records is not easy task. It is like a jigsaw puzzle. Interpretation of what went on its past requires a lot of imagination and common sense. And to discover, analyze, interpret their finds, archaeological anthropologists have to take this help of geologists, chemists, and paleobotanist, and a host of other specialists. So obviously, when one digs deep into the earth, one cannot do without geology. So when you date the past, you require the help of physicists, chemists, and others. But despite all this interdisciplinary collaboration, the archaeological anthropologist shall always remain handicapped at least on one count. He will never be able to know that as to what speech or language the prehistoric man was using. Still, reconstructing the past shall remain an anthropological preoccupation. Then for that there will be linguistic anthropology. Among man's many features, perhaps the most distinctive one is ability to speak. Speech and language are an important part of human culture. As well as human culture, and since anthropology cannot exist without a study of culture, and it is most logical to include the field into the sphere of anthropological studies. The study of language from an anthropology viewpoint is called the linguistic anthropology. Through linguistic is a separate field of study. The anthropologist is primarily concerned with the relationship between the language and cultural behavior. It studies the linguistic variations, the ways in which humans' languages have been developed, how they relate to the one another, how language is learned, the relationship between the language and the other aspects in culture. One of these important aims is to understand the through processes and the organization of human mind as it is expressed as language. Social linguistics, a sub-specialty, is interested in determining how contemporary language is differ, and particularly how people speak differently in various social contexts. In other words, you can say that it studies the roles of languages in social behavior. Languages gives us insight into culture, as such into a valuable tool for studying and understanding people. Now, applied anthropology, in plainest of terms, applied anthropology refers to the where you can say actual application of anthropological knowledge. It came into being in response to be oft repeated questions within the community of anthropologists and outside could anthropological knowledge. So be put to the practical uses in solving the problems of man. The fact of the matter is that the most of the scientists involved in the diverse branches and devoted to the pure research also clarified the idea that what they are doing today so may someday prove useful or contribute to the welfare of human society. Applied anthropologists worldwide are mostly involved in programs designed to improve the technical skills and raise the standards of living, improvements in farming, the other productive activities, health, education, community development, etc. Applied anthropologists with their general background in anthropology have to specialize in diverse fields and such as tribal development, urban planning, demography, family planning, education, etc. They are collaborating among with other applied social scientists, with the policy planners and administrators. Such a collaboration may be classified into several situations. Anthropologists act as consultant on the staff and usually functions under the control of administrators. Anthropologists are as consultant to the administrator but is an outsider, not a regulator payroll of the organization. Anthropologist and administrator, they are working together as a co-administrators. An anthropologist is at least temporarily in actual charge of development program. Another category represented by the action anthropology has been compounded by Soltex in 1959. It can function only in the independent manner and in institutions where an action anthropologist can combine both action and research. An action anthropologist as a social doctor, this known can be seen as what is that question comes many times, that who is a social doctor, that is action anthropologist. They will question that right about social doctor. Social doctor is an action anthropologist which combines in himself the responsibility for diagnosing the disease, prescribing the medicines, and following up the treatment. Is changing the prescription if need arises, and finally bringing about health and happiness in society. So obviously, in such types of research, monitoring, evaluation, the consequent you can say shift in the strategy goes on simultaneously. However, in the view of limitation in personnel and resources on the one hand, and the magnitude of the task of national development on the other, So there are numerous difficulties in the implementations of actions research program in India. So this is the role which is an applied social scientist should aspire. Generally, anthropologists and administrators do not get along very well. Such as some administrators argue that they can very well act in their own. Anthropologists, in most of the cases, the administrators feel that anthropologists work very too slowly and submit reports which are too technical to be useful and are too sympathetic to the problems of the pupil under study. So most of the anthropologists tend to see administrator as unconcerned bureaucrats, but they just who want to implement change into quickly, expect and reasonable results, and are intensive to the problems of work people to be affected. The dilemma of anthropologists working on the parallel of government is pitiable. Generally, what happened that they are afraid to make recommendations which are unpalatable to the government is power. Often they are then described as the legitimizers of governmental action. If anthropologist knowledge is to be utilized fully for the benefit of mankind, the anthropologist should be involved with policy decisions as many levels. So at Bees and Heuser 1971 point out that among the things that anthropologist is in a position to do which are, you can say, informed decisions and if necessary provided new data through research. Here the anthropologist should have a major voice in policy in the sense that he should decide what research is needed and how it should be carried out, estimate the probable social consequences of alternative decisions. It should be pointed out that there are, you can say, it pointed out act there was always at least two alternatives to act or to or not to act or not to act. Usually there are always two or more alternatives for action. A through analysis will also estimate that what future courses of action may be foreclosed or made possible by a policy decision. So should have a major, although not necessarily final voice concerning the ways policies should be implemented. If research is needed, again the should have a major and perhaps final voice in the formulation of research projects and the methods to be used in carrying them out. Evaluate the effectiveness of projects and programs of achieving a state goals. Applied anthropology is to be great extent it concern itself with planned cultural change. It involves the ethics of the applied anthropology, which is a large, highly sensitive, controversial and debatable issues. Usually most of the simple anthropological field work does not pose the problem because simply observing or living with your subjects respondents does not amount to bringing any harm or introducing any change in their life, but introducing any innovations and trying to bring in a planned social or cultural change in one or several spheres of social cultural life certainly poses a question that is the planned change beneficial for the target groups? Will it bring happiness or shatter the harmony of life? So does the target population also regarded it good? So many ethical questions are involved in this. So the problem becomes more glaring and the dilemma and more painful when one comes across a situation in which the choice is between a set of dismal alternatives. It is often not a question of which course of action will work best, but rather which will work less hardly than the others. This is the most frequently in the case of simple and primitive groups caught between the two words. In such situations, the satisfaction of applied anthropology are few, and even success looks like failure. The harsh truth is that the applied anthropologists will have to take responsibility for the effects of their recommendations and actions, and they can hardly maintain the posture that they are like technicians unconcerned with the ends towards with their applied scientific skills are directed. So sadly, all these talks are gradually becoming irrelevant in a scenario of today's world, especially in third world countries like India, where anthropologists and sociologists are seldom heard, and all social sciences, it is only economics that hold the key. So here we have just completed our chapter. So next chapter we will start anthropology as a point of view day after tomorrow. Thank you, and if you like my video, please like and comment and share, and please subscribe my channel so that next video you will get. And please, as much as you can share this video, it will help a lot of friends. Thank you so much.